Mill's Liberty Principle versus Locke's Social Contract Theory by Bianca Gregory. The issue discussed in Module 6 was whether the government should be allowed to outlaw gambling, cursing, drug use, prostitution, motorcycle riding without a helmet, and selling or drinking alcohol on Sundays, and a nation that is based on the sanctity of individual liberty and personal freedom, such as the United States. Mill's Liberty Principle, also known as the harm principle, is that each individual has the right to act as he or she wants as long as these actions do not harm others. Mill argues that society adopts customs, beliefs, opinions, and attitudes which are accepted by the majority as the right way of thinking and living. Individuals who show signs of deviating from this right way of living are shunned and ostracized from the majority, and therefore are pressured to conform and adopt this right way of thinking. Under Mill's principle, thought and expression are also important. Just because a view is unpopular does not mean it should be silenced. When society pressures someone to conform, individuals cannot participate in the experiments of living. Mill goes on to argue that the greater good is only served when people can do and think as they please. If everyone does what they want, then everyone will be happy. Mill's principle holds that not the state nor anybody else should interfere in anyone's activities unless those activities will harm somebody other than themselves. Mill would argue that these acts are not affecting anyone other than the user. Therefore, by outlawing these acts, the government would be acting in self-regard rather than other regard. To begin, Mill would argue that outlawing these laws would pressure minorities to conform. Just because most of society believes cursing is inappropriate does not make it true, so the minorities should not be pressured to conform. Also, outlawing the sale of usage of alcohol on Sundays is pressuring minorities to conform to the majority's religion. Mill would go on to argue that the actions are not causing harm to others. People should be free to use drugs as long as they are not violent while under the influence, for example. Also, gambling and motorcycle riding without a helmet are other acts that should not be outlawed because it is the individual's personal choice and it brings no harm to others. Also, it would be destroying individualism. The tyranny of majority should be destroying individualism by creating rules and regulations based on social norm. Society needs members to participate in unconventional activities to gain truth and understanding. Therefore, outlawing gambling and prostitution because it is known to be wrong in society is limiting society's growth. Finally, Mill would argue that it is encouraging rather than stopping that should be at play. The government cannot force people to wear helmets. They should instead encourage the community to try to convince others of their mistakes. Locke's social contract. Social contract theory is the view that persons' moral and or political obligations are dependent upon a contract or agreement among society to form the community in which they live in. According to Locke, the state of nature, or the natural condition of mankind, is a state of perfect and complete liberty to conduct one's life as one best sees fit, free from the interference of others. This does not mean one is free to do anything at all one pleases. However, everyone in the society must surrender to the will of the majority of community leaders. The majority rule is what keeps a community stable, which prevents rebellion and preserves individual rights. Therefore, unless the act threatens the individual's natural right to liberty, life, or property, Locke would argue that the government has full authority to outlaw these acts if the majority agrees. How would Locke react to these laws? To begin, Locke would argue that it is a social norm. Cursing is seen as inappropriate in societies and is seen as something many people do not want themselves or their children exposed to. Therefore, it must be regulated at the least. There should be bans on language that disrespects the general opinion of the community. For instance, cursing and profanity should not be permitted in schools because children are not of legal age and therefore are not considered mature enough to be exposed to language deemed inappropriate by society. Cursing should also not be allowed in public because there are many people who do not want to be exposed to this language. Locke would go on to argue that it creates an unhealthy society. For instance, gambling, prostitution, and drug use create an unhealthy society and encourages more people to participate in the acts. Since these are not seen as a social norm and are heavily frowned upon in communities, it should be banned. It would also argue that it's best for society overall. Riding a motorcycle with a helmet has been proven to cause less fatalities in motorcycle accidents. Also, prostitution and drug use should be outlawed because it can easily bring harm to another's interests. Prostitution can involve the spread of diseases, and drug use can also cause the spread of diseases and can affect the people around the users. Locke would go on to argue majority rule. If the majority believed that alcohol use should be prohibited on Sunday because it was a holy day in their religion, Locke would agree because it is what the general will wants. In conclusion, the freedom to make your own choice and individualism is important in any society because it prevents ideas from turning into dead dogmas. The idea of everyone doing what makes them happy is great, however, it is impossible. In order for one person to reach maximum happiness, another person will not be able to seek their maximum happiness. Both principles, when taken into moderation and in consideration of all the people in the community, are necessary when making new laws, because both the majority will and individualism is important in society. What America mainly bases laws on. America mostly bases laws on the Constitution. Within the Constitution, the fundamental rights of both the minority and the majority are protected. For instance, the government cannot outlaw cursing or the use of drinking and selling alcohol on Sundays because it would violate the First Amendment's freedoms of speech and religion. Although a majority of people may believe in a religion where it is unacceptable to drink on Sundays, other religions may not believe that to be true, so it's unfair to force that belief on the minority. Also, people have the freedom to say whatever they want, as long as it is not considered slander or libel, which is harmful to a person's character. However, there are societal norms that should be taken into account. So individuals should consider the environment they are in and think about how their actions could affect the people around them. Although Mill may consider this as conforming to the majority, it is mostly about respecting the feelings of the individuals in the community. These acts are followed even if the majority disagrees with them.